Now Leanne has joined us, and Leanne wants to take better photographs of her family indoors at home. So this is a good chance to talk about flash and how we can use the internal flash of Leanne's Canon Rebel, and then how we can modify the light by using a dedicated flash. So welcome, Leanne.
Thank you.
So first of all, let's talk about the basic built-in flash of your camera.
Okay.
Now, a good mode to start off with is to use the program mode on the camera and then let the camera's electronics do most of the work for you.
Okay.
To put the flash up, then you simply press the flash button on the side here, and that basically forces the flash to fire. Now, if once you've taken a photograph with the flash up and you find that the exposure is good but the light from the flash is maybe a bit too bright, then you can use a setting called flash compensation. So this is similar to the exposure compensation that we've been using so far, but it actually doesn't change the exposure of the entire scene, just the brightness of the flash. So flash compensation is found by pressing the menu button.
Okay.
Then we scroll down to the bottom where it says flash control, press the set button, and then we go down and it says built-in flash function setting, and then we have flash exposure compensation, and we just move that to a negative or positive value depending on how much more or less brightness that you want. Now if your flash is already fired at its maximum power, then going to a positive setting will not get any more brightness from the flash.
Okay.
This brings me on to the use of aperture with flash. Aperture plays a huge role in how far your flash will fire. So if you're finding that you're using the flash but you're not getting the distance that you would like, then it's probably because the aperture that you're using is too small. So set the camera to a wider aperture such as f4 or f2.8, and then you'll find that the flash will actually go much further. With a small aperture, the reflected flash is trying to get through that very small hole in the lens, and it's very difficult to do that because the built-in flash is relatively weak. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we'll take a photograph of Rachel with the built-in flash. So as you can see, Leanne, then the built-in flash, because it's firing directly at Rachel, has given us some pretty harsh shadows and it's not very flattering. So one way to overcome that is to go out and buy a dedicated flash for the camera, such as this Canon flash here.
Okay. So Richard, do I need to have the Canon flash for my Canon SLR?
No, you don't. You could actually go out and buy a non-Canon flash, such as this Sunpack flash. They don't have the same features as the Canon flash, but they're significantly less expensive.
Okay.
But what's important with these flash is that you can actually bounce the head. So by pressing this button here, we can move the flash up. So when it's on the camera, instead of the light firing directly at Rachel, we can actually bounce it off our white ceiling. And then that will diffuse the light and we'll end up with a much more natural look. So one of the neat features about this flash, Leanne, is that it will actually zoom with your zoom lens. So as you zoom your lens to get a certain shot, then the head of the flash will zoom as well to give you the same amount of coverage.
Oh, excellent.
If you're using a really wide angle lens, then what you need to do is to pull out this diffuser here in the top, and that will give you an even broader beam. So if you find that you've got like a spotlight effect with the flash, then it's not zooming wide enough, and then just pull this diffuser out.
Okay.
Now the other thing that's tucked away in here is this white card. This is used to give a catch light in the eye when you bounce the head. So when we bounce the head off the ceiling, that's going to give us a more diffused natural look. Then you also want to pull out this white card, and that will give you a nice catch light in the eye.
Okay.
Okay? And when we do bounce the light, we can either do it off a wall by turning it like this, or we can bounce it off the ceiling. But the main thing to remember is that the ceiling or the wall is a neutral colour. If you've got a red or a green ceiling, you're going to get a red or a green light lighting up your family.
Okay.
So when you put the flash on the camera, I recommend that you turn both the flash off and the camera off.
And why is that?
It's just to prevent the flash accidentally damaging the camera as you slide the contacts over the contacts on the camera.
Okay.
Okay, and then once it's secure, then just turn this thread down until it locks securely on the body.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, now to bounce the flash, you press this button at the side of the bounced head, and then that allows you to adjust the angle. And you want to choose an angle that will bounce the light roughly halfway on the ceiling between you and Rachel.
Okay.
If the angle is too steep, then the light will hit the ceiling and then just come down again. And if it's too shallow, the light will basically go over Rachel's head. So you want to have a nice halfway mark.
Okay.
And then don't forget to pull the white card out so we get the nice catch light in Rachel's eyes.
Sounds good. Okay, Rachel. So I noticed in that photograph I took of Rachel, I had a dark shadow underneath her chin. Is there any way to fix that?
Yeah, there is. That's a good point. The problem now is that the light's coming up from the ceiling, so the light's coming down from above, and we've got a shadow right down here. So to fix it, one way is to use a reflector such as this one.
Okay.
And we could, as we're doing just a head and shoulder picture of Rachel, if she has this on her lap, then the reflector will bounce the light back up and fill in the shadow. But of course, a lot of people don't want to go out and buy a reflector for that problem, so you could simply use even a large sheet of white paper or a white t-shirt, anything like that that will be bright enough to actually reflect the light back from the flash and fill in the shadow.
Okay.
So we'll do that again, and then we'll have Rachel holding this reflector for us.
Sounds great.
So now, Leanne, we're going to introduce the reflector, and this will bounce light back up to the ceiling where the flash is coming from, and that will remove the shadow that was underneath Rachel's chin.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, Rachel. So Richard, can you tell me about when there's a flash at the side coming into a picture, how I can accomplish that with the dedicated flash?
Yeah, sure. So to achieve side lighting, we need to take the flash off the camera, and the two easiest ways to achieve that are either to take the flash off and use a cable to control it, or to use another flash to trigger your remote flash that's off to one side. So we'll look at the second option where we have a flash on the camera triggering a remote flash off to the side of the person.
Okay.
Okay, great. So now, Leanne, we're going to use a remote flash, and now we'll light up Rachel from the side. So it'll be a more interesting use of light.
Okay.
To do this, we need to have two flash units. So we're going to have one on the camera, which is going to be the master flash, and then we'll have the second one will be a slave flash. With the newer Canon models, such as the 7D, we can actually use the built-in flash to trigger one remote flash. So that makes the whole project a lot cheaper.
Oh, good.
The first thing we're going to do is to make sure that the slave flash is switched to slave. So the switch here on the 580EX, we set that to the slave setting. And then we want to match the channel number, which is here, with the channel on the master flash. The master flash has a channel of 3 set at the moment, there. So we need to change the slave to match the master, or you could always change the master to match the slave. To do that, you press this button, and you keep pressing it until the channel flashes, and then turn this dial and press the middle button, and there we have channel 3. Now on the master flash, we do not want the master flash to fire during the actual exposure, so we want to turn that off. To do that, again we press this button here, and you can see there's some lines from the front of the flash symbol. It currently says off, so that means it will not fire during the exposure. And if you do want it to fire, then just turn this dial so that it's on. As I just mentioned, we actually want this off. The idea of having different channels, if you've got different photographers working together, you don't want one photographer triggering your remote flashes, so you can all agree on different channels to use.
Makes sense.